Oh man, we are live with another installment of Talking Palettes, and I am here with the super talented Tameca L. Coleman. How are you, Tameca?
Doing all right. Like living La Vida Loca in the times of COVID-19.
Oh man, I hope it's a dance party over there. I really do.
I was dancing earlier. I was like, oh, this is a good song.
Oh no kidding. What were you dancing to? Do you
I'm
recall?
Mortal Orchestra. Because I realized
What's that?
Unknown Mortal Orchestra. I realized
Oh,
earlier
I love
today.
them.
Yeah, I realized I'd only ever really heard one of their songs. I'm like, I really should give this whole album a try. And I was like, oh dang, this is really good.
Me too. I only have one of their songs on my iPod. That's how old I am. You know, I still have my iPod, the first generation, and I know I've got one of their songs. I couldn't tell you what it is,
Yeah,
but when it pops up on the car ride, it's
it's good.
thoroughly enjoyable. Yeah, yeah.
Just give a whole album a chance sometime. It's like I was like, how did I not get, I don't know. There are a lot of things that I'm wondering why I didn't find out about it sooner, or
Right.
or why I didn't listen to the whole album. And then of course the way we listen to music is totally different now. So a lot of times it is
Yeah.
that song. I was like, wait, who even does that song? I don't even know because I never Shazammed it. You know what I'm saying? So like,
Oh man. See, that's another indication of how old I am. You know, I just know of the term Shazam. I don't know what that means. When you say Shazam, I think of Captain Marvel. You know, because I'm a comic book geek, and I was just like, I love that movie, and I like the comic book. So, anyway, please educate the
I don't know.
idiot old people.
It's an app. There are a million cajillion apps. Like it's just like you point it at the song and it listens to it. And it's like, oh, it's this song, and you're like, okay, cool, I like it. And then it
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know why I know about Shazam. Somebody told me about it.
Because you're more versatile and universal than guys like me.
I feel that teaching has started to make me feel old because like there are some references I know I brought up in class, and I'm always like, LeVar Burton. Do y'all know about LeVar Burton reading Rainbow? No? Yes? Some of you?
Jordy.
Okay. Like
Rainbow.
Yeah. So that's starting to happen, and I'm like, whoa, this is what everyone always talked about. Now I get it.
Oh, that's great. Hey, so Tameca, tell us a little bit about yourself. You know, who you are, where you come from, and how you got into writing and singing and all the creative outlets that you do. I know it's a loaded question.
It is a loaded question. I always tell people, like, when they get excited about anything I'm doing, I'm like, just don't do what I'm doing, because it's a coping mechanism.
Okay.
Pre-COVID, I had 5 jobs, 7 days a week, and I was trying to freelance too, wondering why my brain didn't work, that kind of thing. Like, I tend to do that. Also, I tend to be a little all over the place. So it's just like whatever, it's kind of catch as can. So it's like there are lots of things that I'm good at, but I don't call myself any of those things necessarily. I mean, I do, because you have to put it on websites and stuff, but like writing, I feel, has been with me a really long time, probably the longest. Singing, I'm in and out of. I actually haven't formally sang in about 6 or 7 years, not regularly. And what else do I do? I was a massage therapist pre-COVID. I might get back to that. I teach now. I'm a reluctant professor, is what I call myself, because I tried to stay out of that world, and I am in that world. Obviously, there are some things I love about it. Otherwise, I would have said hell no. What else do I do? I dabble in like photography and stuff like that. I just like, I don't know. There's just, I don't know why I do all of that. Like, I like learning. I read 30 books at a time. And my goal is to finish 100 books a year. So I haven't successfully done that in 3 years, but that's my goal, because I tend to have many books on the coffee table. It's
Uh,
it's like it's just what happens. I'm like, oh yeah, I want to read all these things, and then find ideas from each one or whatever, and or forget about them, or throw one across the room. But it's just
whatever lands the furthest or the shortest, that's the one. Yeah, you've got the most attention for.
sort of
Whatever
like
your
I kind of
criteria is.
yeah, I live on my own, so there are things I can do that I wouldn't be able to if I had roommates or if I lived with a partner. So like
Right.
literally I'll leave stuff in my way. So things that I want to be looking or thinking about will be literally in my way. On a chair or on over just crazy over the coffee table or on the, you know, wherever next to my bed with the thing facing me, the title facing me. Um, and then sometimes have I wish I was a more avid reader, but I let
Mhm.
my thoughts get interrupted a lot. So like I have a pile of books on my couch and it's mostly chapbooks and stuff. So sometimes I'll do something like burn through them, like burn through 5 or 8 at a time.
Okay.
And so I don't feel like I get a lot from them, but I am getting kind of a feel and maybe learn a couple things from it or something. But it's just I have that goal of 100 books a year that I have to finish. So
Wow. That that's great. I'm lucky if I can get through 3 or 4 books annually. That's always something. My attention span is usually, it's like, well, I could be working on this.
yeah, and
You
that's
know.
kind of what
Uh,
happens. Like like I'm reading something in a paragraph and I'm like, oh yeah, that reminds me of, and then it's writing, right? Or I get distracted
yeah.
or I need to eat.
Damn it, stomach. Why aren't you working with me and not against me?
Sorry, I totally cut you off there because we were talking
No,
about
that's fine.
reading.
That's Oh no, I think it's great to talk to people who are avid readers. I think my girlfriend, she's an avid reader. She's always like, "Here, you should read this, and then read this." And it's like, are you kidding? It's going to take me, forever to get through this. I'm very slow, and
I'm,
I have to read things a couple times before I get it.
yeah,
And I probably do have learning disabilities, and just never really got them, identified, in school. I think teachers just like, just pass them through. Who cares? At least he's not setting fire to the place. So that's good.
right. Well, see,
So, but I always, I'm always off to, let's build this, let's do this. When I'm watching a movie, I have to be drawing or doing something or something like that. But yeah, so it's always nice to hear, people are out there reading and with you voraciously. Holy cow! So that's wonderful. Do you find that contributes a lot to your writing then?
sometimes it does. Sometimes I have to be careful. So like I've been reading a couple different authors a lot lately because I love their work, and I also love who they are in the world. And I have to
Mhm.
be careful because it's really easy to absorb kind of like their stylistic
Oh,
things and their voice and tone
okay.
and stuff like that. And it happens kind of unconsciously. And it's
Hmm.
kind of the same. It's the same thing that happened when I was like when I first started getting introduced to jazz and wanted to sing jazz. I listened to a lot of horn players because I didn't want to
Oh,
sound like all the vocalists, because that's the first thing everyone says, like, oh, you sound like Ella or you sound like Billie Holiday or blah blah blah. And I'm like, I want to
oh, yeah.
sound like fucking Coltrane or like on Cherry. Fuck you. Like, I don't want to sound like Billy. I love Billie Holiday. I love Carmen McRae. I love all of them, but I want to
Yeah.
sound like I'm Skronky Skronk.
Wow. Okay. That
And
I guess
so,
that's a reference I don't understand. That's
well,
awesome.
horns, they, especially saxophonists, oh my gosh, they like to skronk a lot. So it's like that noise they make, like
Yeah.
groveling kind of stuff. Um,
Okay.
a lot of times singers aren't allowed to do that. A lot of times singers are like kind of asked to be the icing on the cake, I say. And it's something that always kind of pissed me off because, you know, I had a saxophonist boyfriend and I got to sing the pretty nice stuff, you know, like the accents, and he would scrunky scrunk. And I'm like, oh, I want to scrunky scrunk. I want to be like that.
Oh, yeah. That's a pretty cool reference. You know, so are you able to do you know, scrunky, or is that right? Scrunk?
It's something I made up. It's just like, you know, like
I
the
think you're
guttural noises of the horn.
I think you're onto something. I think you know, you're going to be the torchbearer of your own, you know, jazz, you know, singing style.
Well, I
I
mean,
love it.
it happens more in avant-garde, but I didn't know that in high school. You know, I was listening to a
Yeah.
lot of straight ahead stuff, and
Mhm.
like my ear wasn't opened yet for the way just it's not cooler. It's just it's a different world kind of stuff, you know, and it's not for
Yeah.
everyone. But with reading, it's kind of like that. It's kind of like this absorption
Hmm.
slash kind of. I think I read so many books at the same time too because it's like always some sort of bibliomancy, I guess. Not on purpose, just kind of accidentally. It's just like there are lots of things that I'm thinking about, and I buy
Yeah.
books and I collect books in those veins. And also, like outside of those veins, like those answers or considerations or whatever, like having words for different things that I don't have words for, whether they be things I feel or, you know, like
Hmm.
ethical things or whatever. Those answers will come through the reading, and it's not necessarily by reading the whole book. That's why it's like
Yeah.
I'll read a paragraph or a sentence. I'm like, oh shit, that's it, and then like you know, then I'm writing off somewhere. Um,
Okay. That that sounds great. That sounds well. It's, you know, you get that little nugget of inspiration, and you're off to racetracks and see where that takes you, and
yeah,
then sometimes you come back to it, or you're on to the next thing, I suppose.
sometimes, yeah, that's part of the practice too. Is actually following stuff through to the end, especially with like the creative stuff. Like um, creating is one thing. I think one of the best things I ever learned was from this artist. I don't even know if he's practicing anymore. Such an amazing, amazing, amazing artist. Um, who we we went to the gorge. A bunch of us went to the gorge to see Nine Inch Nails, which was an
Oh,
epic, epic show. It was my first big show like that, so I was very overwhelmed. Of like, why do people do drugs? Like, I don't think I can. It was my
what
favorite.
year was this?
It was like more than 20 years ago. I was before I moved
Okay.
here. Perfect Circle opened for them, and they had that beautiful chick bassist. Oh my gosh, so beautiful.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, so
I
that
know
like
who
way back
you're
then.
talking about. I don't remember her name though.
Someone just told me the other day, and I forgot. But what was it? What was I saying? Oh, so
Yeah.
you have to camp outside of the gorge
Hmm.
to be well,
Cool.
you know, to be close because it's kind of far to
Yeah.
get there. And it's real deserty and stuff, and I couldn't sleep. And apparently, my artist friend, I wish he was my friend. I always wanted him to be my friend. But my artist friend, he um, was creating a sculpture in the fire. So there was a campfire going, and he was creating a sculpture in the fire. But it wasn't for anyone to see. He was just creating it just to create it. And I was like, oh, you create
Right.
art all the time. And of course, it's like being just deconstructed by the fire and stuff. And it was like, it was so cool to be able to witness that. And it was like a huge lesson. It's just like, you know, as creative people, we're creating all the time. And
Yeah.
like, not necessarily is it seen, probably not the bulk of it is seen by everyone else. And it's interesting because we live in this world where we're supposed to show everything, like everything is a performance, the dinner on my plate, the sculpture I'm making in the fire, like all of these
Mhm.
intimate moments often are also like a performance for Facebook or Instagram or whatever.
Right.
But
Right.
that was a moment where it was not, it wasn't, it was just, it was just something that happened just because those were the materials that were there, and he was
Mhm.
pensive or whatever, and that's what he was doing. It wasn't a performance or
Yeah.
anything, and I just happened to like see it. um and I just thought that was really cool, and it's, I think
Yeah.
it's advice we get a lot as creative people, but like don't necessarily heed, because we're always looking for, a lot of us are always looking for like that, hey, am I doing it right? Am I doing okay? Kind of
Yeah.
thing. And then also trying to stay in everyone's feeds. At least this is, So why was I talking about that? I was like, I was trying
You
to
were
get back.
talking about, yeah, I think, yeah, you were talking about the, process and, how this, creative person really informed you and, had some influence. I think to that, like, creating those intimate moments,
Mhm.
where, just you were the only one that seemed to witness that process and what he was doing. And I think you're right. A lot of, like, even this interview, I mean, it's being broadcast on Facebook. So we're creating that moment for an audience of sorts. But, back then your friend was creating that sculpture basically for you and for himself,
Right,
in that, and not being documented. And I think that kind of, you know talks a little bit more to, the act of creativity doesn't have to be to a mass audience. It can be to
right,
yourself, or just to that moment where nobody else, aside from yourself, is witnessing it. And
right,
I think there certainly is that spark of, it can be, seen as, special, or could be seen as, something of, an intimacy, um, or it could be also just be something, it's like keeps you active. Maybe that's the only purpose to it. It's just, it's something to do. If somebody sees it, great. If not, that's fine too. There's, that kind of reminds me. My mind goes to, like, street art too.
yeah,
Where it's done, it's for a large audience that's just walking by, but it's also temporary.
yep,
uh, at least that's how I look at it. I think, you do all these spectacular pieces, but, it's only going to be there for a limited amount of time,
right.
so either the next guy comes along or somebody tags it, which I think is exciting.
Or
A lot
what?
of artists, don't like that, and when it happens, neither do I. But, it's a temporary, it's a language, and
Right.
it's made to be temporary. So does that inform a lot of, like, your writing, or how you go about creativity?
I do tend towards flexibility. I think before I'd get mad at myself because I'm quote unquote not documenting myself enough,
Okay.
but it's not possible to document your every thought or your every action, or like even the most important things of every day. It's just not, you don't have the headspace for that. Maybe somebody does. Kudos to them, but I sure don't. But like, I think I used to be in that headspace. Like, I have to save everything. I have to save everything. But the thing is, like, as creative people, like, I think a good example is like looking at the works of Dali or Dali. I don't know how to say his name right. I should
Salvador
probably,
Dali.
yeah.
Okay.
Like, that was one of the things. Like, when my artist friends were in art school and stuff, and they were bringing home these art books, and I was like, why are there so many clocks in all of his paintings? Like all of these
Mhm.
different kind of icons and images and things like that. And it's just like the same images and the same patterns and the same thought waves happen throughout your work. And so, like, even like, I know I'm talking about artists a lot, but like in writing, it's the
Okay.
same thing. We're pretty much, I mean, we are the common factor, right? As a writer, I'm the common factor in my work, and
Right.
probably I'm going to be writing about like the same themes and asking the same questions, etc.
Okay.
Right? Probably, maybe not, but probably. Um, and so it's just like saving everything. I sometimes I do regret like not keeping track as well, because there are different
Mhm.
filters we see through over time.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
but it's just like, if I'm going to be writing about the same themes and things like that, I think I have to trust that whatever is going to come out is going to come out when it does. or even if I have the gumption to make it a thing, if that makes sense. I don't
Yeah.
know, are you crazy? I don't know, but like it's just I think that I'm reluctant in a lot of ways because
Okay.
sometimes I feel like this work is self-serving and it doesn't, what is it doing for anyone? But then I have to the readings that I've had. So my writing lately deals a lot with like the book I'm trying to get published right now. It's a
Mhm.
hybrid work with like poetry, prose, and images. And
Okay.
well, there are two versions of it out there. One that's just poems, and the other one that has a whole bunch of other stuff in it, like experimental kinds of things. And I talk about familial estrangement. I talk about identity as a mixed race person and being in between things. And I talk about working towards reconciliation. So those are
Mhm.
the things that I've been working around for a long time. And sometimes I feel that's really self-serving. It's like I just want to get it done and over with. I want to be done with that. I want to get to the reconciliation part and all this stuff. So it's a lot of my own personal work in a
Okay.
book that happens in a book. And uh so obviously very autobiographical. Um, and I think what I would love to be able to do is like to write some kind of like, activist opus that blows people's brains to freaking uh enlightenment or whatever. That's highfalutin. But like I dog on myself sometimes because of that, but then I have to remind myself like the reason why I've been influenced by a lot of the work that I've been influenced by is
Mhm.
because they did that personal work and shared it. And
Yeah.
because they did that, I was able to start formulating kind of like words around some of my experiences that I wasn't
Mhm.
able to talk about before. And so it's like a collective act. It's like a kind of community that happens. Like my writerly lineage has given me that wordage. And who's to say like maybe it'll help someone, maybe, or maybe
Yeah.
it's just an entertaining read, or maybe no one will like it. There are all kinds of possibilities. But I know that I
Yeah.
had to get it done. So I don't know if I talked myself in circles on that, but I'm always
No.
on both sides of the fence of that.
Sure. I think as a writer and as a creative person, if you're not personally, kind of conflicted and reflecting on what
Yeah.
you laid out, you might be doing yourself and the work a disservice. I think it's because you're constantly self-analyzing and everything, and I do that a lot too. But for me, I think there comes a point where it's just like, fuck it, get out the door, like
Yeah.
and and
Get it
and, and to your
out.
point, get on to the next thing.
Yep.
Um, and I think there's a lot of stuff when I'm writing a script. I'll sit there and just like, oh, how are people are going to take this, and then
Mhm.
there's some stuff it's like, nope, just put it out there, and then there's some stuff, no, it's clear I'm not very well informed on this topic, I can't be the one to deliver this, so this gets shelved, or I take it out of, this is not good for this project. um, and I'll do that a lot before I'll even give it to somebody to get some feedback,
Yeah.
and stuff. So I think that's healthy that you feel conflicted, especially on something that's so personal. I think that's you know there does come a point where it's it can be
Yeah.
problematic, but I think being self analyzing and um, and I mean, I do sense a level of self-deprecation that
Yeah.
I impose on everything I do. I to the point of I'm self-sabotaging, but I also
That's
think that's
beautiful.
yeah. I think that's it can be a healthy way about yourself too. Um, because you don't put yourself on a pedestal, or the work too. So to that effect, can I put you on the spotlight and see if you'll share one of your poems with us?
Oh, right now? I could do
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
if you don't want to, that's fine too. But now I'm just intrigued.
Uh, yeah. What should I read?
What do
Um,
you feel like?
hmm. What have I been thinking about a lot? That's not too super long. Let me see what's in my recents. Because I've been working on a lot of long poems lately.
Oh, okay.
I've become. Oh, I think I know what I'll read. No, I can't read those yet because it says I can't publish them anywhere before they look at them, so I won't read those.
Okay,
But
no
something
problem.
I'm realizing that I love is catalog. And so essentially catalog is a list, right? And so
Hmm.
you can actually use a catalog to emote a feeling or tell a story. And
Okay.
it's really exciting. I need to like put together a list of catalogs because I've just realized very recently that I've been writing a lot of them. Um, you know what? I'm going to risk it and uh,
Okay.
read it anyway. Am I? Let's see.
I don't want you to get in trouble.
Um, well, it's not. I mean, it's like no, it's not under contract or anything. I'm just trying
Oh,
to contest. So yeah, maybe I should.
oh,
I'm like, should I read some black shits? Should I read some queer shit? Should I read some
oh.
story of my name? Um,
I, yeah, it sounds like you've got a wonderful catalog of material already. That for me as uh, a white person, I don't live a lot of that. I think of your life experience. So I would find something like that insightful.
okay, let me see what's in this document. If it'll come up, come on, buddy. All I want is technology that works.
Right?
Um,
Yeah, and I'm trying really hard not to go to black magic to make technology work.
you know what I'm saying? You know what? Oh my gosh, I get that.
It's like, really? Do I have to kill another chicken? Jesus, God damn it!
Shake it over the
Yeah,
keyboard.
I've already killed my apple pie, so I've butchered this cup of coffee. I mean, it is a little too strong.
I'll read this one if I can get this to like I have too many tabs open is the problem. So let's get
Ah,
rid of some of those. Um
yeah, I know that problem too. It's like, oh, these tabs, and then
I'm not
somebody brings you a can of tab, and you're just like, I don't know what to make of this now.
uh I'll read these two poems. They're fairly new. Um and I've been writing some small things during these COVID times. Because you have a lot of time with yourself and in your
Yeah.
home. This is the most I've been in any home I've lived since I was probably like 14 or 15 years old. So as soon as I started working, I was out of the house.
Yeah.
And even my own place. So I've been looking around like, oh yeah, I live here. So I've been writing kind of in that vein, like doing householdy kinds of things, learning how to cook and shit. Um, and I've just been thinking too about like some criticisms I've received from other people that hit pretty
Okay.
hard. And I obviously felt defensive about, but I wanted to look at them. So that's where these two poems are coming from. And the first one's called I Am Not Brave.
Okay.
What do you do in the wake of a natural disaster? Do we find a new home? Do we build over the ash? My petty knowledge of fire made personal the night I chased lightning, sped a bicycle through a storm, laughing my banshee laugh in the flooding rain, arm hairs bristling, a joy, a giddiness, when thunder struck down, and standing on magnetic rock during the afternoon storm, realizing that life is what I want. My pants legs heavy, shoes slicked against my bike pedals, barely holding on, praying to make it home, walking away from the crater as the dark clouds gather before the thunder strikes down. I am a tourist in the torrential weather passing through, looking back over strange clouds when I've met my front porch, wondering if I would tease it again. This next one's called Good Joy. It came from a writing, there are a couple of writing groups I've been in and out of. And this assignment is, if anyone wants to take on the assignment, you come up with 2 disparate words and Google them and see what you find. And so it's kind of a combination of kind of like found poetry and so like quotes and things like that, or pieces of things. And then almost like bibliomancy, where you're letting your brain be real loose. So I looked up good and joy. Am I good? I assume that you are a good and bad person like most people. I have gotten the feeling from you that you are not much interested in getting to know each other. If that's the case, that's your right. I wish you joy. Good. Joy delivers, or it can build in a world starved for love. Standing on the corner of 14th and Court, looking suspicious probably, peering into this lighted box, looking for I know not what, trying to escape the world, is 72 degrees on its way to a baking sun. Downtown is sparse today, but a couple and they're not for used to city streets jog past. The 2 sun-baked men carrying stuffed dingy packs ask me for a cigarette. I wish I had cigarettes and a light for them. At home, I am no one. At home, I am aware that I've abandoned someone. At home, the dishes pile and the gnats land on anything that molds or sours. I make a gnat trap near the sink under a spider. The gnats are so thick in the vinegar, they could be read like tea leaves. That's two very new poems. And kind of short and not too heavy. Just a little heavy, not too heavy.
Oh, that's great. It's I found them, especially the last one, very transportive. So it definitely your work certainly sets the stage, and as short as they are. So I applaud you for that. That's some really fun work. I like it.
The stuff you learn, if you can get past that whole like first thought, best thought mentality that you start out with a lot of times with writing.
Okay.
Like, all of my thoughts are great. They're coming out like gold. And then 3 years later, you're like, what is this?
Well, and I tend to think about that too with my work. I'll sit there and one day write something, come back to it a couple days later, and it's just like, oh, it's not quite there and needs a little bit of editing, and then but yeah, like you said, come back a couple years later, and it's just like, oh, this doesn't work. And then I'll think about too. It's like, well, what was my frame of mind back then? Well, chances are I can't remember because I've already shed those thoughts and that person.
Right.
At least I hope I'm a different person by that time. They say that you shed the majority of your cells every 7 years. The mind remains, but hopefully by that time you're a completely different person.
Yeah.
I would be afraid if I'm not, it's like, I don't want to, I wouldn't want to be that person back then anymore.
I think about that too. Like I was talking with someone, a couple of people very recently about kind of like, I used to not handle things as well as I do. I don't know if I handle things really, really well, but I feel like, I don't fly off the handle like I used to. I never like got in fights or anything, but I'd just be like, like, you want to see crazy? I'll show you crazy, running after cars and pounding in their hoods and stuff. And like, wow. I'm happy to say I'm not like that anymore. Like it takes a lot to get to that point. Like, one time I saw this kid carrying his girlfriend by her hair down the street, that kind of shit. Like,
oh yeah, no, he needs a fucking pounding.
Yeah, that might make me blind, but then I'm like, oh shoot, I don't have the skills to be in this situation.
Yeah.
But like, I've done a lot of work, like probably to the other end of that. And so I'm trying to like, calibrate in a different direction because I got to be Auntie Mika now. Like take no shit, have good boundaries, and be as kind as possible without letting people step on me.
Yeah.
And that's like my new kind of how I want to be. Um, but it's taken a really long time because yeah, it was like it wasn't okay. Like I was like I would like just start screaming. And one of my friends the other day, she was like, yeah, you would just get really upset. I'm like, man, I wish I grew up like you did so I could have that diplomacy, that language of diplomacy you have.
That she has.
Yeah, she's like, yeah, I just remember you would get really upset.
Yeah.
I used to get really upset. um I can't remember what that was connected to, but I don't know. Everything's a practice. Maybe that's what it was. I feel like
Right.
everything, everything is a practice.
Right. We with that I wouldn't call it a rage or anything like that, but with that emotional outburst, so to speak,
Yeah.
um, would you find like writing and singing, good for expelling some of that energy or coping with it, or?
One of the reasons I haven't sang in like 6 or 7, I stopped counting after 6. I think it's been longer than 6 years, is because I was in like a couple of musical situations that felt really good to me, and they were like I could experiment, I could do those scrunky noises. Sometimes it was real ambient, but it was always like always improvisational in every room. And sometimes the experiments didn't work, and sometimes they did. And when they did, it was so great. And it like it was bliss. It was like one of the only things I have run to very frequently in the whole almost 20 years I've been in Denver. There are lots of things I've frequented on and off, but this I was like almost religious about. But then there was like a break in all of those projects at the same time. And I
Mhm.
remember when one of the groups called me back, and they wanted like something really nice and sweet and pretty. And I was screaming. Like every time I worked with them, I would scream, and it probably sounded terrible. Actually, the recording I did with them, no one can ever hear because I fucked it up because I was like, because that's where I was at. Like all this rage was inside of me that I didn't, and sadness and all these other things that I
Yeah.
didn't get to express. Because sometimes like the breakup of a band feels like a really tumultuous breakup, like
Right.
and I don't know if I ever really totally got over that, because I think music for me was a totally different thing. It was for a while uh, kind of a way to get me out of bad situations.
Mhm.
And then it also played a lot on like my value issues. So like, am I, how am I doing? Like, do you
Right.
like me yet? Kind of stuff. And am I doing it right or whatever? And so like I just stopped because like my
Mm.
reasons for doing it weren't okay. Um, and I think I was starting to get into a different place, and I just felt totally torn apart by all the things that just stopped working,
Yeah.
because it's like, oh my gosh, I finally found what I want to do,
Yeah.
and then it just gets destroyed. And the sucky thing about that is like it's taken me this long to be like, so like how do other musicians do it? Because they go through some shit, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
when you're a professional musician, you get paid everything from a pat on the back to like $300 or $400, for a gig, or maybe more
Right.
if you're lucky, right?
Right.
Or really shitty cheap beer. Um,
Pabst Blue Ribbon.
yeah. Uh, you get a pass that you're doing all right. Um,
Yeah. Well, of course, somebody has to call me right now. Stop that.
but
Shame on
like
you.
the advice I wish I would have gotten in
Mhm.
music is that you just keep going. It's like you pick yourself up and you keep going. And I never got that message. And I'm not totally sure why. I think it's just because I was really blind with wanting people to accept me
Mhm.
and I don't know, treat me with some kind of respect or something. So I didn't have that in myself. Now that I do, now I have doctors looking at my throat to see what's going on there. So
Oh,
listening
is,
again.
is there something going on with your throat?
Yeah, I have nodules. on my thyroid. So yeah, no, everyone does that. But yeah, it actually affects my voice, so it like causes enough pressure to press on my vocal cords as well.
Mm.
And I mean, it's moving stuff around. It's right up against my clavicle.
Oh,
So
dear.
it's
Wow.
it's hard to not feel that that's not partially like psychosomatic, kind of.
Sure.
Uh, but yeah, definitely seeing the doctors to see what we need to do. Because I think
Yeah.
I would like to sing again, but it's not like it's somehow not as important as the writing is, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. So
Well,
mm,
the writing is that's the topic. That's that's the material to sing about.
yeah,
Um, because you've done a little bit of like spoken word too, right? Because isn't that what I heard on Bandcamp?
it's like I um I wish I was like the spoken word poets. I have so much respect for them. I always have. Because they're able to like absolutely captivate a crowd and just like just be so strong on stage. And every time I've gone to a slam, I've been floored by the work that has been presented there. And I remember for a long time, like there was like this deep rift between academia and like the performance poets,
Okay.
which is total bullshit. Because even in academia, we got like Amiri Baraka and like
Mhm.
a whole bunch of other folks who do kind of like that more performance poetry.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know. I think part of it is insecurity. I really like having my paper in front of me. I didn't mean
Hmm.
to like flash my. I really like having
Oh,
my paper in front of me, and I think because I've sang and performed that way, my readings are a little different. But
mhm.
I also get really nervous on stage, so I like having my paper.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't yeah, there's certain things that happen in slam and stuff that I just haven't really done a whole lot in my work. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm not totally sure why that is. Um, I've thought about it on and off, and just like I think it's just that fear of the stage. Because believe it or
I,
not, I do have that fear.
I totally understand. I have stage fright.
Yeah.
Um, I for about 6 months I had a band. It was like 2006,
What?
and yeah, so it was just me and my buddy, and because I did OFM. It was a stage combat performance group,
Oh, that's
and yeah, we got dressed up in big latex monster outfits, hooked up with blood, and it was a fight choreographed play. We'd have a band too, and one of the band members. We had a number of different musical iterations, and one of the band leaders, he and I went off and formed a little duo because I guess that was the cool thing at the time, and we didn't know what style we wanted, so we just did all the styles. We didn't know what we were doing. We had fun, but I was scared out of my mind.
yeah,
And so I would build like big masks and stuff and things that I could hide in and sing and stuff and big props, and I'd paint myself up pink head to toe. Um, and I would sing or I would growl. I don't know what you would call it, but I had a mic and I put sometimes words would come out of my mouth, and so it was fun, but it was terrifying at the same time.
yeah,
Um, so I totally understand, where you're coming from, and I think like when you were saying you go up there with a piece of paper, I would equate that to my headpiece, my little mask thing that I would hide in, and it was comfortable, So it was, to me that um, that's kind of like the little magic wand, to get me to get up there and do that. I think if I did it and kept with it, too, um, I probably would have worked my way out of it,
yeah.
out of that stage fright. But now I totally understand why so many musicians are addicted to drugs because yeah,
Uh,
that's probably at the beginning, it's a good coping mechanism till you're
it,
addicted.
I mean, I don't have a lot of experience with that, but like it definitely puts
Right,
you in a different space, right? Even just drinking a little bit, it puts you in a different space.
right, right,
And
right.
like some of that stuff is very far away then. And it creates a nice a nice buffer. Yeah,
Yeah.
I get it too. Cause I used to ask that question all the time. Cause I was like, I and when I turned 18, 17, 18, I started hanging out with like the art and music kids from a different school, a different high
Hmm.
school. And they did more of the drugs and drinking and stuff like that, but I never did. I lived in the band house. We called it the House of Sin. 9 fucking
Mm,
people lived there. You know, like I did all that,
mm,
but somehow I never got rounded into any of that. And like I had a really hard time. And sometimes I
mm.
regret that I didn't. All my friends are like, no, 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 it's okay. We'll tell you anything you want to know. But like, it's just like, that's the thing. It's like, there was, sorry, I'm going around in circles a little bit.
Well, that's okay.
There was an essay
Hmm.
that I'm sorry, Mairead Case read last summer at the Naropa Summer Writing Program. And she was talking about like a bunch of punk rock kids and like, you know, and that was part of the culture is the drinking and the drugs and stuff. And
Right,
like, you know, it's real easy to judge that. And I was real judgy back then. It's real easy to judge that, but that was the best coping mechanism that they had. That was what they had. And,
right,
you know, to have some semblance of like, I mean, obviously there's a lot of joy and a lot of celebration and a lot of shared experiences and stuff. And these are things that a lot of us don't even have access to even anymore. And I think that was definitely happening in the 90s because like there weren't places for kids to hang out at, not where I was anyway. We had some place we called the Dream Spank. It was the Dream Walker, which closed because they hated their clientele because the clientele would come and not really buy anything and just hang out because there was nowhere to
mm,
go. um
right.
it was like it was a sober space. And I think it was a sober space. It was like a coffee shop. They had raves there, raves, and like you know, and
Yeah,
but it's just like, you know, that's what happened there. And so that's why often I regret that I didn't partake in anything, not drinking or anything, because I thought I was better than that or whatever.
hmm,
But I also denied myself a lot of like it's tricky talking about this stuff, you know, because I know a lot of folks in recovery and stuff like that, but like
mm,
they also have a lot of connections with folks, and not all of them are necessarily that bad for them because everyone's growing together. But I don't
mm.
know. It's just like having those kinds of collective experiences. I really do miss that because the people I wanted to hang out with, the artists and the creative folks, that's what they were doing.
Yeah,
And the reason why they were doing that is because a lot of us are dealing with some really messed up stuff, and that's why we're creative people, you know, because we're processing it in all these different ways.
right,
So, and I was just like,
right.
no.
Well, that yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty unique too to not participate in that. Was that like a straight edge thing for you conscientiously, or was that just something you just kind of grew into?
You know, if I would have known about punk when I was in my late teens, it would have saved my life in so many ways.
Right, right, right.
But I didn't. I was like listening to a lot of grunge and stuff. I just like I don't know where these ideas came from.
Mhm,
Because I was really strict in my mind about a lot of different things, like about relationships and
mhm,
about drugs and drinking,
yeah,
about like how I thought I was supposed to live my life and discipline and work and all these other things. I have no idea where any of those things came from.
mm,
Uh, because like I estranged myself. Like there's certain estrangements that happened in my family and in my life for different reasons. And then I continued the estrangement by these weird ideas I had, you know, that estranged me from my family even more.
yeah,
And like, you know, put me in a place of like, I don't know if I thought I was better, but I was trying to be better. And I
okay.
don't know if that's really different now that I said it out loud, but I'm like, shame. But like, yeah, I mean, essentially, I estranged myself from my whole fucking family because I was trying to be good or whatever,
Hmm.
like to be in the world, but not of it. Not to use a biblical term because the Bible doesn't play a huge role in my life, but like I just had these really strict ideas. And I
Mm-hmm.
expected everyone should be doing better and not cussing and not smoking and all this. I'm a totally different person now. I mean, I don't do a lot of that stuff still. You know, I might drink
Yeah.
or something, but like a friend gave me a whole jar of pot candies. So I'm apparently doing that now. But like, uh, um, it's just,
well, and you might as well. You're in quarantine.
like I gotta keep my head right.
Yeah, there's a time and place for these types of experimentation, and one of them's quarantine, the other one's college.
I don't know. I don't know. If I make it to like 70 or something, I might. We'll see. We'll see what happens. There might be some experiences I still want to have.
Oh
Um,
yeah, definitely. I'm not suggesting that's the end of all experiences.
right.
You
No,
know,
of course not. And I'm not necessarily condoning these practices. But I'm
well,
also not super judgy about them anymore. I think
yeah,
the full realm of human experience is very important. I think that it's important, like all emotions, all feelings, all experiences. I think they're really important, and that's a tricky thing to say too, because like it's a real like kind of woo woo like you know spiritual whatever.
right,
Um, and you have to have your foot planted in the world. That's where we're at. So like
right.
psychopathy, for example, I don't really want to experience the effects of that, and it's really hard to argue that some of the actions that come out of something like psychopathy is going to be um, you know it, like the full range of human experiences is important. Like that's like the other end of my argument, right? It's just like,
Mm-hmm.
what are you saying here? Sorry, I'm trying to think on both sides of it, and I'm like wondering if I'm getting myself in trouble.
Well, kind of explain the parameters of I can't even say it.
So
Jesus.
psychopathy is like, I mean, it's a mental disorder.
Okay, because I'm not aware of this.
The brain just works differently in
Okay.
psychopaths, and so
Oh,
psychopathic.
okay.
Like I think of it as being a kid and you finding a frog and you want to operate on the frog, and you
Oh,
haven't formed any empathy or connection with the frog, right? You just want to see how it
right,
works, and so like
right,
there's like a lot of. I don't know if I'm not a psychotherapist, and
right.
I have a limited. I had like 5 students who wrote about it, and they were obsessed with serial killers. So, uh,
Oh,
so
yeah. I've got
the
friends
frog,
that are into that.
I that's going to be on my list of things not to write about from now on, because I don't
Right.
really talk about those guys anymore. They can talk about some other things having to do with psychopathy, but maybe
Yeah.
not. You know, let's be obsessed with Ted Bundy for a semester. Oof.
Oh,
Um,
dear.
but I mean, it's something like that. It's just there's a series of books, the Tom Ripley books. Do you remember when the Tom Ripley book came out or the book movie came out? The Talented
Uh,
Mr. Ripley.
oh yeah, talented Mr. Ripley. Wasn't he like a mimic? Trying to mimic people's behaviors and
That's
some
one of the things that happens with psychopathy is
right,
like almost like it's almost like I said, I'm not a therapist, so I'm probably saying this wrong, but that happens in on the autism spectrum too. Like you're not able to pick up cues and emotions and things like that, and so you'll emulate them, right?
right,
So that definitely happens in psychopathy too, because they're just not there's something that's connected differently or not connected in their brain.
right,
So it's really easy to say that it's evil, period. Definitely a lot of the actions that happen from, say a serial killer is not beneficial for humanity. Um, uh, But yeah, I don't know. What am I saying? How did I start talking about serial killers?
Yeah, well, this seemed to be a topic that you were wanting to go down. Um, yeah, but yeah, I guess in that respect, we did kind of do a little circle dance here there,
That's fine. That's how
here
my
and
brain works.
there. Yeah. But but yeah, are you thinking like in general that's how society is kind of like functioning, or are
Well,
you thinking in terms of like um, like how writing can be kind of therapeutic? I don't know if
I think
does that
I was coming from the point of I do believe that all human experiences are important. Um,
right? Oh,
and
even the negative,
yeah, well, and then I was asking myself why, and then I was asking myself, and what about this thing? Um,
right?
and like, I mean, there are bigger questions we could ask all the time, right? Like, is
Right.
there some use for that energy kind of thing? But of course, we're not there as a human race. It would be really
Yeah.
hard to like implement those things from where we are now. It's just how my brain works. It's just like thinking on a lot of sides of different things and also trying to be as expansive as possible. Because I don't think in black and white. I don't think that this thing's good or this thing's bad. Um,
Yeah, I agree.
and
Yeah.
and you can get in trouble a little bit with that kind of thinking. And so you have to like really I don't think you have to, but I like to try to be ever more clear about those ideas because it's just
Yeah.
like, uh, I'm going to be called into question, like, what about
Mhm.
this thing? Oh, yeah, that's a good question. Let me think about it
Yeah.
for 20 years. Um,
Only 20 years.
yeah, that's doing pretty good. 20 years.
But if you actually were to quite literally take a question and contemplate it for like 20 years, that's a great question.
Yeah, I think it is too. Like, what what would be the function of folks with psychopathy um,
Mhm.
in like a ideal society? And
Yeah.
what is that ideal society? Because for some people, an ideal situation looks a little different, even though all of our wants and needs are essentially the same. You know,
Right.
like we're entering into a political, well, we're in a political arena, but we're going to vote soon, and that's just something that I've always thought about. It's like, yeah, pretty much we all want safety in a home and to be fed and be cared for by our communities. I think
Yeah.
I think I'm whatever the basic needs are, or whatever. Like I think we all want those things. Um,
Well,
yeah,
I think too, like we're realizing, and we probably realize this on different levels and different capacities on the evolutionary, thread that we pop in and out of.
yeah,
Um, that our basic needs are pretty expansive. There's so much more there. Like recently, I think I heard that like for instance, hate and racism.
right,
Well, it was presented to me now as a healthcare risk. I'm like, holy crap, you're right.
yeah,
That I've never thought about it that way, but yeah, I mean, both physical and psychological harm can have an impact not only on the identified group, but it ripples throughout that society. But we let it permit. Um, and I was like, that is like what you were talking about. I would identify that as a basic need. That it's that need of health care, both physical and psychological, but also that security risk. That not only the physical threat, but racism and hatred have real no function in society. So when somebody identifies themselves as a Klan member or as a
yeah,
Nazi, it's just like, well, and the idea of like, so that's when like free speech kind of plays into it with me. It's just like, it's like, okay, yeah, we identify that you have those ideas. I have no interest on hearing them, nor do I want to give you a platform, because all it is just creating more rift and spite, and eventually it'll end in physical damage, as well as the psychological aspect. So that's something that I've been kind of, that's been boggling around in this really thin candy shell of a head. Um,
I
but
think,
uh, but yeah. Anyway.
I mean, those are important questions, like why are we
Yeah.
still why are we still there? Like, it's a tactic used to racism or anyism
Right.
is a tactic used to dehumanize somebody. And that's the thing. It's
Right.
like we're all made of the same stuff, like same stuff. We have different experiences and stuff, but what, like, we're all people. And like,
Yeah.
why do we have to constantly dehumanize each other as if there's a lack? And like, really, there isn't a lack. Like, if you've studied any
Yeah.
kind of economics or even just looked around you, there's no fucking lack, right? So like,
Right.
I remember I was like in a advanced placement economics class for a minute in high school, and I just couldn't hack it because I was destroyed for like a week on this idea of, I can't remember what it's called, but essentially our government can take our excess, right? And instead of
Mm-hmm.
giving it to people who need it, they take this excess and dump it on a poor country. And the poor country, the folks in the poor country, like say it's food or something, they don't
Yeah.
have access to this excess either. And
Mm-hmm.
to top it off, their economy is going to decrease in value because we just dumped our excess on them. And I was like fucked up for like a week about this. I was like, what? This doesn't make sense. Like,
Wow.
there's no lack, and they're just taking it and letting it rot in a field somewhere, like surrounded by fucking fence, or something
Right.
like that. Like, that's how I saw it. And I was just like, this is terrible. This is like, and it doesn't make sense. Like, it's there. The abundance
Yeah.
is always there, and this is what we do. And then to top that off, we're like trying to dehumanize each other because we think there's this lack, or because we think we need certain kinds of power or something like that. And I don't know, I've been listening to a lot of Charles Eisenstein lately too, and he talks quite a bit about that. And he actually he's a ecologist, I think. And he
Economist.
talks about, no, not an
Ecology.
economist, an
Oh,
ecologist.
economist. Okay.
He talks about politics. He talks about, um, these kinds of issues with like the isms and things like that. And he also talks about it is framed in kind of a spiritual understanding, and
Yeah.
also with an understanding of logic and rhetoric and philosophy, things that can actually be used in the world. So he's not talking just woo woo stuff. He's not one of those guys. And so I really appreciate him so much because he's, he breaks down these ideas like, what is racism? Like, that's the question you have to ask, and like breaking it down and then understanding it from there, and then you can come up with like a game plan on how to change that.
Yeah.
Um, I was also
Yeah.
reminded, sorry, I was also
Oh
reminded
no.
of a guy named Daryl Davis. I had to look him up really quick. And
Okay.
I haven't read this book yet, but Clandestine Relationships, A Black Man's Odyssey in the Ku Klux Klan. And he
Oh,
essentially,
Daryl Davis. Yeah,
yeah,
I think I know him. Yeah. Okay.
yeah,
Is he the gentleman that befriended members of the Klan and then
yeah,
got him to basically secede from
yeah,
that?
yeah.
Yeah, that guy is
Um,
fascinating.
yeah, he's absolutely, I mean, he gets a lot of criticism.
Right.
Um, and so I've like held off on reading about him for a while, but because I just want to hold that hope, right? Like, that
Uh-huh.
can happen. It's just like, when
Yeah.
you see me as a person, how can you not see me as a person? Like, you really have
Right.
to make a decision to not see me as a person after I have been humanized. um,
Right. Right. Yeah, that I think that kind of takes us back to like psychopathy. Whereas like psychopathy, you're looking at like your example of a frog. It's an object, right? So it makes it easier to cut
yeah,
into it. So when
yeah,
you're dehumanizing other people, two, you're objectifying them. You're making them into this object, this thing. So with hatred, this thing to fear. This is like, no, dude, you just don't know to connect with these people and learn about the common grounds, but also like what makes this person special, what makes this culture special and stuff. And instead, you're just putting up this artificial wall that really doesn't exist. It's just superficial bullshit.
Have you seen that Skins?
What's up?
Have you seen that movie Skins?
Maybe not.
It's a very strange film. It's Spanish, I believe. Essentially, it's folks with all kinds of deformities. And
is it with Antonio Banderas?
Is Antonio Banderas in it? I don't think so.
No. Okay.
Maybe. I don't know. I haven't seen him in anything for a long time. Well, it's like it's one of those movies that takes you places like you're not sure you want to go. Like there is a young woman with an asshole for a mouth, for example. And this is her disability, right? This is her disability. This is how she's trying to move through the world. And what the movie does, though, is it humanizes every character who's living in the world with these kind of deformities, and it's also humanizing them through their relationships, which is really fucking cool. And I love stories like that. I love horror, and I love like kind of these offshoot movies, like I don't know, like Lobster. Have you seen Lobster?
I've seen The Lobster, with Colin Farrell. Farrell.
So I consider PLA's or this Skins movie kind of in that vein. It's like it's taking these moral issues, right? These big questions and these big kind of social problems, and addressing them in often a very uncomfortable way, but also like very artfully done, So I don't know. It took me a few days, but because at first I was like, should I be watching this? What kind of person am I right now? But it's a really good movie because, like I said, it definitely humanizes each person, and you see more than whatever disability is presented, no matter how surreal it is, and it is uncomfortable. Like there are some uncomfortable things that happen, and I think in this movie they definitely have to happen for that movie to have worked. Kind of like Hereditary, there's some really terrible things that happen. You're like, oh yeah, that worked. Holy
shit. My girlfriend went and saw it in the theater, and she didn't take me. So the first time I finally saw it at home, and she's like, this gave me nightmares. I was like, oh, this must be a good horror movie. So I went and watched it, I think on Amazon or something, and I was like, well, this is the biggest piece of shit. This doesn't make any sense. This doesn't, this. And then you get the last 10 minutes, and it's just like, oh, that's the best part of the movie. Anyway, that night I had nightmares. I couldn't sleep, because of this. And I'm like, ooh, there's something there. There's something there that unnerves me, and it pushes my buttons. And so there's something there I have to go back and revisit. So I watched it again. This is brilliant. The rules don't apply, right. And I was like, so to get from point A to point B, the series of steps that it takes to get there does, it matters, but the regular logic that you would apply to it doesn't fit for this world. So
some like invisible brain space that you didn't, and it hit, and oh yeah, stuff from that film.
So I think and then you've got like the follow up Midsommar, which is more Scandinavian. I thought I was watching a documentary with some dramatizations going to so that my oh no I was just saying my perspective on that was different. It was like, okay, now I'm an observer, I'm witnessing a culture,
Yeah.
and I come at it at more analytical and stuff, and and then by the end of it, yeah, I was like, wow, that was actually a really good documentary with a great budget,
Yeah.
and then the next day I kind of reflected on it. It's like, oh, this is actually a really good breakup movie. You know, that's what was
Probably
really going on.
the
I was
best.
like, it just ended horribly for this not so great, not very comforting boyfriend. So,
Right.
or ex-boyfriend, really. I
Right.
mean, he already was an ex-boyfriend by the beginning of the movie.
Right.
So he
Well,
just couldn't get around it. So
a friend of mine actually said that they felt like the movie showed people making good decisions. They were just making good decisions. And I was like,
yeah,
that's interesting. I get that.
okay,
It's a tricky space because that's not the society we live in. But like, you know, they had, you know, not to give the movie away, but if you can definitely argue that point. It's like, yeah, this is a system that works, and this is why. And
mm-hmm.
for one of the first times ever, well, maybe not one of the first times because I remember it happened in Death Proof, but the guy who did the terrible things got his just desserts.
Right.
Um, so and it was in service of community.
That's right. The stunt community. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I did love the end of Death Proof.
Oh,
But
I
I
watched
thought,
it on my own, and I was like,
yeah, no, I was cheering. It was like, yeah, the girls, get the guy. Fuck that dude.
yeah. I, I
I
I don't think I'm a violent person, but every once in a while, I'm just like, whoa, yeah, that evokes that reaction out of me. But yeah,
well,
that movie.
yeah, yeah. There's definitely like yeah. Is it like a sense of closure? That when something like that comes full circle, because that's something we I think we don't get a lot in real life. You
Yeah,
know.
I think as female presenting person
Mhm.
who experiences a lot of things having to do with having woman parts, a lot of the times there are lots of things that happen. We keep all the men's in our lives secrets, um, and some of them are really terrible. And some of those things are things that have been done to us. And we live in a
Yeah.
society that constantly tells us that takes us for granted and doesn't
Right.
believe us, so to speak, right? And so like there's
Yeah.
like this feeling of like hopelessness. And then to see a movie like Death Proof, I mean, it is absolute catharsis because it's not just that
Okay.
man in the movie, because he's been
Yeah.
getting away with this for a very long time, and he's real nonchalant about it and very big
Yeah.
smile, and
Yeah.
he's like that guy. He kind of represents all of those things. And then at the end, when he just gets so brutally dead and
Yeah.
it was an exhilarating moment. It was exhilarating because it's just like all the things that happen to women and women presenting folks and femmes and
Yeah.
whatever, like it's not okay, and it's
Yeah.
still messed up, and it happens via microaggressions, and it happens in straight up like physical brutal abuse or death. And yeah, that's why I loved that movie so much. Like, I don't think I had the words for it at the time, but I think
Yeah.
I'm guessing that that's probably a big part of it you
Wow.
know
You present Death Proof in a new light for me that I really didn't consider. That I think that's
it's
wonderful, because now
a
I'm
check, like,
thinking now I'm thinking Kurt Russell's character is probably whether Tarantino intended this or not. It might have been subliminal,
yeah.
uh, but Kurt Russell's character is a stand-in for Harvey Weinstein,
Whoa.
because like Tarantino's been around Harvey. He knows a lot of the bullshit that went on,
Yeah.
and um, and I'm sure he's I I'm not gonna, say that he enabled stuff, but I'm sure he was aware of, some of the things that was, going on, and either turned a blind eye or just didn't know how to cope with it. But that creates the atmosphere for more harm to be done.
Right.
Um,
Because
so
you just keep letting it, and it's going to keep happening. And
right,
that's why
right,
call out culture is so, that's why everyone is out for blood, is because, like, you know, it's where we're at, and it's a necessary step. I don't completely agree with call out culture, and that's a tricky thing to say too, but that's what we have. That's where we're at, and it's because so many people. Yeah, I actually wrote a poem about this in one of my manuscripts, about
mm,
how we're always being demanded to forgive and accept, and
right,
um, often without apology or acknowledgement of the deed that was done, let alone
mm,
any kind of movement towards actual reconciliation, whether
right,
that be healing, that stuff, or making some kind of amends if amends are possible with the victim. Um, and a lot of times it's not going to be safe for that victim to even have any kind of contact with the person who has hurt them. So like there are all of those kinds of things I think about a lot. Um, because it's tricky and it's terrible, and it's good to see things changing. Um,
yeah,
and unfortunately, for folks who have done shitty things, it's like, you know, people are gonna call it out, and it's gonna be ugly. And people want blood, you know. They want blood. They want your jobs.
totally, yeah, and rightly so.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, how should people, if somebody witnesses something like that, how should people address it? Just
That's really difficult. Like, I can think of lighter version of my life. I was hanging out with a friend who had a roommate who is a trans person, and is transitioning. And they're a terrible roommate, whatever. And they are a trans person. And another person in the community that I know who is non-binary. And
mhm.
used to be my friend, sort of person, was in an absolute state of denial of who each of these people said they were, and so they would constantly mispronoun them, and they're like, they look
Who-
this way, therefore they're not what they say they are, and
who-
they, you know, you know, my trans roommate is not trans. They're not going to go do the surgery or whatever, and they're just a man in a dress and like all these other things, right? And it made me really super uncomfortable. And in the moment, I wasn't able to say anything. I think I was shocked, and I was also like really reviewing kind of like in that moment where my privilege lies, and what uh like how much I could say, what I could say, was it worth it? Those kinds
right.
of things. And I remember it like really bugged me for like almost 2 days. Like, I'm like, this isn't right. Like, maybe their trans roommate is a terrible roommate, but that doesn't negate the fact that they're trans. And
Hmm.
maybe the non-binary person did some terrible things in their past, but we're allowed to change and be whole human beings, and they are
Right.
non-binary, you know. And so like and then I found myself getting really fucking angry, because I was just like, I don't want anyone to tell me what I am, and I don't want anyone to do that to my friends. And I
Right.
just started realizing I couldn't be friends with this person, but I didn't handle it in a way. I made a Facebook post because I knew it would probably trigger something, or they'd want to talk to me. And
Mm,
it did trigger something, and they don't talk to me, which is fine, because I honestly don't have a lot of room for folks who are going to treat other people that way.
yeah.
Because I do believe that, you know, we're allowed to be whole human beings, and we're allowed to say what we are, who we are. We're
Yeah.
allowed to express that. And so, like, I give that example because it's a little lighter, and because I did not handle it well. I feel like if I had handled it well in that moment, I would have said, you know what, this is really bothering me. Like, I hear that you're saying your roommate is a terrible roommate and there are all these other problems and stuff. I'm so sorry you're experiencing that. And I feel you're being absolutely disrespectful and hurtful towards this person by denying them who they say they are. Because you can't do that. Like, if someone came up to you and said you're a certain thing, and that is not who you know yourself to be, that really fucking sucks. Like,
Right.
you need to let people have their own experiences in their own bodies, in their own minds. And like, you know, I don't think being a trans person is a delusion. It's not a sickness. It's how we experience the world in our bodies and in our minds. So like, I would have been a lot more graceful that way, and done it on the spot instead of, like a Facebook post. And I think there needs to be more and more of that. Like, not all of us have the language and the tools of like what nonviolent communication or whatever. Like, I'm super imperfect at it, but like, it's a practice. Everything's a practice, and we move towards that. And sometimes what we have is call out culture. Like, you know what? This is bullshit. You're a fucking asshole. Fuck off. Sometimes that's where we're at, right? And it's not graceful, and it's ugly, and it cuts, burns bridges and stuff. But I think if that's where we're at, those are the tools we have, and that's going to make things change. I would like to live in a space where I'm a little more graceful, and being able to be like, you know what, if you want to be my friend, this isn't okay. This is a non-negotiable with me, because these are my friends you're talking about. And maybe your roommate isn't my friend, but I really feel for them right now. So yeah, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Wow. Tameca, I think you certainly give us a lot to think about and reflect on. So I think these types of conversations are really informative, but also, therapeutic, because I don't think too many people have tools to talk about this. And the more you talk about these things, no matter how uncomfortable they are. And, when I talk to my other white friends, which I have way too many of, these type of conversations rarely come up. And, it's stuff that needs to be conversed on and reflected on more and more often, to where it's commonplace, right?
And to hopefully to a place like Eisenstein said something in one of his talks. He's doing this free talk on commune. I think it's called commune. And he talked about the 500-year plan, which I liked. And Angela Davis wrote a book called Freedom is a Constant Struggle. So like, there are all these activists and stuff from the past and from the present who are like, it is a long game. We probably will not see the results of our actions. And activists I know say, we don't all have to be on the front lines. We can do whatever work we can in the places we're at. So like, that conversation I was having with, maybe we could still be friends if I had had that conversation with her. Like, if I had had, the groundedness and really kind of respect for that person too, to have that conversation, then we might still be friends, and hopefully that would change their mindset too, to like, be like, you know what, you're a sucky roommate, but like, I recognize that this is your experience, like maybe that would make a change there. But I probably just made it worse, unfortunately, for that person in that situation.
Well, all we can do is forge ahead and learn from our past transgressions.
And that's my goal. I used to beat myself up a lot more, and now I'm just like, I'm in my 40s now. I don't know how long I'm going to be here. I don't have time for that.
I was like, just give me more coffee. We'll figure it out.
Right?
Forward march. Where's my French press? my horse. I think that's pretty much me in the morning, and then just before my little power nap too. What's my name?
Yep.
Anyway, yeah. So, Tameca, where can people, find you and support your work?
So it's funny. I just did a reading, so I actually have this handy. I
Oh,
am
nice.
Siren Eats Poetry on the social medias, and Twitter. I'm on Facebook, but I don't necessarily want a bunch of strangers on there. But
Yeah.
probably I'll add you if you don't look like a fake Facebook page. And I mean, I do a lot of different things. I'm in the process of some folks are asking me to put together kind of a better website presence and like maybe a Patreon site or something.
Oh,
I'm real
yeah.
hesitant about because if you're gonna take that on, you need to do something that's sustainable every month for the folks who are supporting you. So there's that, and my website, which I mean is pretty much a static page, is tamecacoleman.com.
Okay.
And on the Facebook page, which maybe one day will be more active, is the kitchen sink approach. I think that's
Okay.
all. I mean, any of those ways you'll find me.
Yeah.
But especially Siren Eats Poetry. That's luckily
That's
that's
the
been
best.
for a long time. Yep.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, Tameca, thank you so much for being so generous with your time and coming on and chatting about what you do and also the activism too. I think that's stuff that just needs to be perpetuated into the culture and the living dialogue too.
Yeah. Hopefully more and more. I know I see it more and more because of the people I choose to surround myself with. So we're having these conversations, and it's just that thing of learning how to have those conversations with people who don't agree with you too.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
and there are certain ways to go about that. Not the way that most of us go about it. But yeah, we're figuring it out. I think we're figuring it out. I have a lot of hope.
Like you pointed out, Daryl Davis has a pretty interesting way of doing that, and it has results.
He's got some special superpowers, man.
Yeah, I don't know if I could do that. I don't advise everybody to do that because it could go south really quick.
Real talk.
Yeah. But cool. Tameca, thanks again so much.
Thank you so much. And
let's do this again.
All right.
Yeah, most definitely. I'm Dan Crosier with Talking Palettes with my guest Tameca Coleman, writer, singer, activist. So thanks so much. What's that?
Thank you. I said, don't tell these lies about me.
Oh, just having these conversations makes you one.
All right. I'll have to think about that. Okay.
Okay. Well, makes you a better person.
Thank you for that. And thank you for this chat. It feels really good. So
yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. All
right.
right.
Take care.
Have a good one. Everybody be kind.